Good evening, teachers and fellow students. Today, our Nanjing University Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies Doctoral Forum is very honored to have invited the Venerable Khenpo Sodargye Rinpoche from Larungar Buddhist Academy. Rinpoche tonight will expound for us on the topic of the Buddhist view of life. Before this, please allow me to introduce the Venerable Rinpoche to everyone. In his youth, Rinpoche studied at a normal college and later renounced worldly life to become a monk. He followed his root guru, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, in actual Dharma practice. Rinpoche has deeply penetrated the scriptures and comprehends both the profound and vast meanings of the Dharma. Motivated by his compassion, Rinpoche's activities of spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings extend throughout China and abroad. This can not only be verified from his prolific writings, but also clearly evidenced from the various social charity and compassionate activities he advocates and personally practices. So today, that we can invite such a person, a Rinpoche who possesses inner realization and vast compassion, to expound for us the Buddhist view of life is both the open-mindedness of Nanjing University people and a special honor for us. Our Nanjing University has always had the tradition of seeking truth and being pragmatic, and the philosophy of learning for oneself. So we believe that the ultimate meaning of all learning lies in gaining wisdom and elevating the state of life. Nanjing University has the knowledge and action building. NJUers have more of a tradition and pursuit of unity of knowledge and action. So today, let us listen to the nectar of the Dharma with a pragmatic spirit and an open heart, and truly experience it with our own body and mind. How is the knowledge from books transformed into living experience, and how does genuine wisdom arise from it? Now let us welcome Rinpoche with warm applause.
Good evening, teachers and fellow students. Today, I'm very happy to exchange ideas with the teachers and students of Nanjing University's Religious Studies Doctoral Forum. As for myself, over 10 years ago, back in 1994 at that time, I came to Nanjing. I still remember that at that time I made a special trip to see the Nanjing Yangtze River Bridge, because when we were in school, in our textbooks there was this bridge. The impression was very deep. After that, I hadn't come to Nanjing. Of course, after coming this time, there are new feelings. In terms of the entire material civilization and external architecture, there's daily rapid development. But I don't know whether Nanjing people present, in terms of inner morality, kindness, tolerance, etc., whether in these aspects there's been improvement. I don't know yet. In any case, today the teachers and students gave me a request to explore together with everyone Buddhism's view of life science. Of course, Buddhism's view of life science, it can be said that when measured or determined according to the Buddha's wisdom, no matter what life, what sentient being, all have infinite past lives. And until attaining Buddhahood or ceasing from samsara, they continuously wander in this samsara. This is Buddhism's life science. To understand such life science, I feel we need much reasoning and contemplation, and also need to conduct research to understand these profound principles. So I think everyone present is an intellectual. We should say, indeed, you have broad vision and profound analytical ability. Therefore, we can observe or analyze it together. Do we humans actually have past and future lives or not? I think this question is very important for each person. If we truly do have past and future lives, then is it necessary for us to make mental preparations for future lives? If there are no past and future lives, of course we just live day by day. That is to say, when this life ends, that's all there is. But actually, through very long-term detailed research, truly, people do have past lives and also have future lives. It's just that many people in the world simply don't know. Therefore, not understanding such truth is very regrettable. Of course, for people without learning, people without knowledge, their not understanding is excusable. But for those who consider themselves to have certain wisdom, to have certain noble character, if among such people they don't even accept future lives, I feel this is a kind of human tragedy. Therefore, today, using this time, let's analyze together. I know everyone present's time is very precious. We should use every minute and second in seeking wisdom. This also has value. I think first whether humans have past and future lives, This is worth exploring. From a historical perspective, like philosophy or ancient Roman culture, in ancient Greek culture, all acknowledged the existence of past and future lives. For example, Plato, in some of his treatises, mentioned that humans' past and future lives also exist, and future life's existence has certain connection with one's good and evil. And looking at some of China's ancient culture, from Confucian thought, someone asked Confucius, "What happens to people after death?" He replied, "Not yet understanding life, how can one know death? Not even having time to think about life, why seek to care about death?" From this text, it neither denies nor affirms the existence of past and future lives. Confucianism itself is this worldly. That is to say, it only analyzes the present life. And other religions, speaking from Taoism, they seek immortality and also analyze the future life. Christianity, including Catholicism, from their theories, after people die, there must be a future life. Moreover, creating virtuous karma leads to heaven. Creating evil karma leads to hell. So we should look at some ancient cultures or other religions. They also accept the existence of future lives. So some people think that as long as one accepts human future life's existence, this is a Buddhist view. I don't think so. Actually, across the world, numerous religions, especially Christianity, Catholicism, Taoism, etc., their scope is very vast. And believers of these religions all acknowledge that past and future lives exist. So in this regard, I feel many students, many teachers, I don't know whether you've previously thought about questions in this area. If you haven't thought about it, you should consult some valuable classics of ancient culture to see how other religions, other philosophies analyze it. I think, secondly, I want to discuss our future life's existence actually has connection with one's faith. Looking at history, or looking at some contemporary literature, we should say many people in the world who've contributed to human society, who've had certain driving effect on humanity, all believed in religion. For example, there was an American scientist called Gallup. He once observed 300 scientists from the world over the past 300 years. When observing, among them, 242 people believed in religion. 20 people didn't believe. 38, it's unknown whether they had faith or not. It can be said 92% of these scientists all had faith. Moreover, some statistics also stated that scientists who've made huge contributions to human society worldwide, 93.27% all believed in religion. Now, some new generation intellectuals think scientists completely don't accept any religion. I feel this statement is unreasonable. Whether in the world, for example, Einstein, Newton, Galileo, Edison, from their biographies, indeed many believed in religion. Of course, at that time, Buddhism hadn't yet been transmitted to Western countries. At that time, it was mainly Christianity-based. But when these scientists had faith, they must have accepted future life's existence. This is the key issue. If one doesn't believe in religion, secular society often thinks the so-called human life is merely a deluded phenomenon of the present. Besides this, there's nothing. With such a worldview, with such a life view, looking at everything, then people have no restraint. When not fearing future lives, people will commit all evils. This society has no restraint whatsoever. Why do people in Western countries have such moral standards? They all have a religion. We know many people in Western countries, including presidents. On the day they become president, they first take an oath before God. So such restraint, perhaps a person or group that doesn't believe in religion, thinks this is superstition, this is superfluous. But actually, truly it isn't. We humans truly need such moral standards. So some people think, will such faith have some negative impact on our society's progress or humanity's development? Actually, it won't, because these scientists completely have an attitude of research, but they similarly also believe in such religion. I remember previously, in Edison's biography, he said this. In his laboratory, there was a stone tablet. What was engraved on it? I deeply believe there exists an omniscient, omnipotent, all-pervading, supreme and exalted God. We all know Edison has invented over 2,000 things in the world, including the electric light. But regarding his inventions, his belief in God, his faith, actually there was no obstruction whatsoever. Therefore, religion or Buddhism, such faith won't become an obstruction to your work. Now, some people, including those who know nothing about science or Buddhism, in their work units or in schools. When some people study Buddhist scriptures or read related books, people nearby point fingers, saying you're too deluded or your brain has been washed. Nanjing people have this expression, brainwashed. Actually, if this were so, I think these scientists' brains have been pretty well washed by God, but actually it's not like this. Of course, this origin, I feel, is mainly related to many people's belief in atheism, because at the beginning, Darwin, everyone knows, his theory of evolution initially received people's welcome. But some histories say that when he reached 73 years old, he himself felt that in his entire life, what he'd done was actually also unfavorable to himself. Because at that time, whether his own bodily illnesses or his child's mental disability and many, many things, he felt these were because when young he devoted himself to focusing on the so-called everything is purposeless, which caused these. Everyone knows Darwin's theory of evolution, monkeys inexplicably transforming into humans, one thing inexplicably, causelessly transforming into something else. His initial theory was like this, but later, in related histories, he also confessed before God. When confessing, he also said, previously, I thought everything purposelessly transformed into another phenomenon, an indescribable force, but actually it's not so. So in his later years, he deeply regretted this. There's also such a saying, including Galileo at that time as well, every time, whether sunspots or any astronomical or geographical theory, when he discovered it, from his heart's depth, he especially thanked God. He believed all his very successful inventions had an inseparable close relationship with the great God. He thought this way. So I think, like so many scientists and people who've contributed to humanity, actually their path. In fact, the path for those who have contributed to humanity has never been impeded, whether by God or Buddha. We shouldn't, because of some profound realms we ourselves don't know, either believe out of superstition or blindly make judgments. Actually, when humanity reaches a certain point, without moral restraint, it's truly very frightening. At the very least, human behavior should have a standard, have an antidote. This way, it helps your entire present life's happiness. And for liberation, life after life, of course, it has even more important meaning. So these matters, I think many Western scientific figures have especially great confidence or faith in religion. Regarding Buddhism, we should say it's also the same. This point, now many Western scientists and some Eastern scientists who've greatly contributed to society are also researching. So I think many young people present should sometimes observe for yourselves. In this world, actually, what kind of teachings are worth our exploration? If you truly want to know some mysteries of mind, want to know some mysteries of universal truth, you may need religion, especially the aid of Buddhist wisdom, to unlock your confusion. Otherwise, relying on one's own wisdom, on one's own discriminating thoughts to research for many years, I'm afraid you may not necessarily obtain true results. A while ago at a certain school, I also quoted a passage from academician Zhu Qingxi, former president of the University of Science and Technology of China. What did he say? He said, when scientists painstakingly climb to the mountaintop, Buddhist masters have long been waiting there. Scientists laboriously climb a mountain, and when reaching the peak, it turns out Buddhist masters have long been waiting there. This meaning is truly very profound. It's worth young people, especially wise ones, who particularly believe in science exploring, especially Buddhism's inner science. Actually, no scientist has ever opened this. This point, as for myself, although I'm not a scientist, I've spent a great deal of time consulting many books from ancient and modern times, Chinese and foreign, regarding Buddhism's thousands of sutras and treatises. Not boasting, I've also consulted some. In the process of comparison, I increasingly develop unwavering confidence in the Buddha's wisdom. I believe my confidence isn't superstition, not like some people in society now, reading one Buddhist sutra, they consider Buddhism not superstition. Actually, your judgment like this is truly superstition. Why? So many scientists, so many wise people, they don't treat it with contemptuous eyes. But what kind of wisdom do you have to overturn such a very profound religious theoretical system? For instance, psychological science, whether internationally or in Western countries, is highly valued. You all know, speaking of the West, psychologist Jung, it is far to say that his thought was no less than Freud's at that time. In the West up to now, many psychologists and scientists have an incomparable evaluation of his thought. But what did he say? At that time, he treated the Tibetan Aryan Book of the Dead as his daily practice. For many years, continuously, some histories say several decades. For decades, he kept it at his side. When introducing it to many friends, my best friend, my most faithful friend, is the Tibetan Aryan Book of the Dead. When he finally was about to leave, it said, "That day I met a friend from Cambridge University." He said this. It's a household saying in England, there's such a saying. When he was leaving, he told his daughter, "My current works, including my discussions on dreams, the Tibetan Aryan Book of the Dead, etc. Only after 50 years can you publish them. Otherwise, people now may not be able to accept them." I think he was very far-sighted, because 50 years ago at that time, including Europe at that time, Western countries at that time, weren't like today when Eastern and Western cultures merge, having a state of tolerance and free openness. So he also knew that eventually Eastern religion would flourish everywhere in the West. At that time, including his work on dream states, dream luminosity, and various near-death experiences discussed in the Tibetan Area and Book of the Dead, he could completely verify these. I think, speaking of Tibetan Aryan area, the Tibetan Area and Book of the Dead, it can be said that the book's profound ideas had found their way into every household. It's already transmitted into people's lives, their words and actions. We should say it's not necessarily a religious activity. It should be in ordinary life, in walking, standing, sitting, lying down. Yet many people, including some intellectuals, regard it as either a religious activity or treat it as a rather strange behavior. So first I want to say, many wise people in the world, many scientists, their attitude toward Buddhism or religion is not the arrogant mentality some people have now. This aspect requires contemplation. Then I want to continue saying, because life actually truly, each sentient being's life is continuously extending, not as one thinks. After death, one is like a lamp that dies out, a fire extinguished, water that evaporates, or dust blown away by the wind. It's not like this. Each sentient being has continuously extending life. This kind of life, we all know, is divided into body and consciousness, and the body is also divided into coarse body and subtle body. Our consciousness is also divided into coarse consciousness and subtle consciousness. The coarse body will finally cease. From a chemical perspective, it's also earth, water, fire, wind. Many scientists now, originally before the 15th century, saying the human body is composed of 4 elements. Many people thought it was impossible. Later, after the 15th century, it was concluded that indeed the human body does have components, elements of wind and water. In this way, whether science or religion, all believe the 4 elements constitute the human body. It will finally cease. So what does it finally become? Finally, it becomes a kind of subtle. In Buddhism, it's called the mental illusory body. The mental illusory body is equivalent to the body in our dreams. We feel we've gone somewhere. Actually, at that time, we also indeed have a body, a kind of light, floating body. But that kind of body has certain differences from the present physical body. So this is called the mental illusory body, also called the subtle body. Then our coarse consciousness, possessing eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness. Such consciousness gradually becomes a subtle alaya consciousness. This is called subtle consciousness. This kind of subtle consciousness continuously transmigrates. This transmigration, actually in the Kalachakra Tantra, in Tibetan area and Buddhism, there's a scripture called the Kalachakra Tantra. In the Kalachakra Tantra, it explains how consciousness continues. This is called subtle consciousness. It always exists. This lifetime, I become a human. Next lifetime, I become a yak. The lifetime after that, I become something else. This entire continuation, such continuation truly exists. So its existence, of course, it's not something your eyes can see, nor is it something your ears can hear. If it were like this, it wouldn't be called the mystery of mind. It would be very simple. Its existence, through either a kind of inference, reasoning, to make deductions, or humans' past and future lives' existence, what people now mention. Many people recalling their past lives, or through methods of out-of-body experiences, can be verified. Or now, in Western countries, particularly successful near-death experiments. Through such methods, all can be established. So first, through inference, we must rely on logic. In logic, especially Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika, in Pramanavartika, it explains that whether humans or other sentient beings, there's a kind of clear, luminous consciousness. The clear, luminous consciousness continuously extends. The reason it extends is because it possesses causes. The luminous continuum can't possibly transform, so it must necessarily arise. Through such reasoning, of course, this reasoning, when you study it at the beginning, it may be slightly difficult, but actually, this is a very complete reasoning method, especially for people with strong philosophical debate and analytical ability. It's best to read Pramanavartika and also Treasury of Logic, and also in some Madhyamaka treatises, all determined through this method. In your process of observation, finally, you completely understand. Each sentient being's mind can't possibly cease causelessly. For example, external insentient phenomena, like a light bulb, is originally a bright, clear thing. A light bulb is an object that emits light. Once it is broken, the light disappears. It's dark. This is material. Yet mind is completely different. Matter and spiritual continuum are different. Such reasoning methods are especially abundant in logic. Such reasoning methods contain irrefutable truths. This is one method to establish it. Of course, this is comparatively difficult, but if you truly research it, you definitely should proceed through relatively complex approaches. Otherwise, if you simply, in 1 or 2 days, read 1 or 2 books, taking things out of context, oh, Buddhism says there are future lives, it can't be established. I think it's probably not that simple. Although you may be very clever, it's not necessarily that simple. If you truly debate with a Buddhist master who conduct observation through logic or through reasoning, in the end, you may not have the ability to truly refute his conclusion. This is one method. If you truly hope to understand from theory, you must begin studying and researching from logic and Madhyamaka. Then you can draw conclusions. Also, there's another, that is to say, in current real life, many people can recall their own past lives. This is also a very powerful basis, because if you yourself can truly remember what your past life was like, this is something no one can deny. Just as I remember yesterday's events, others say, you're talking nonsense. But actually, I've already clearly remembered yesterday's events. Others not believing is others' business. This point, the Buddha in the 10 Ground Sutra has clear explanation that people can recall one life, recall 2 lives, recall 3 lives, recall infinite eons ago. There are also such cases. This is the best method. Of course, this isn't something every person can recall, because after entering the womb, there's specifically an obstacle called womb obstruction. This womb obstruction veils our memory, so most people can't possibly recall, but a very few people who have some meditative abilities from past lives and special karmic connections, then they can completely clearly recall. Such recollection actually does not begin only after studying Buddhism. Other people don't have it, it's not like this. Previously, I saw a Dr. Stevenson from the University of Virginia in America. At that time, Dr. Stevenson, after 40 years of dedicated research, I feel if we truly want to understand a principle, like what some Western people with especially strong professionalism do, we must research like this. After decades of dedicated research, he found from countries worldwide people who could recall past lives, over 2,000 cases. Among them, there were over 20 cases where they recalled past lives especially clearly. He made this into a book, such a book on past and future lives. Each case, he explained, all have time, people, place clearly described. If we deny them one by one, I'm afraid the workload would be quite large. So I think recalling past lives, actually, this is a very realistic matter. In our Tibetan area and region, some great masters, from their biographies, they truly can recall their own past lives. For example, my master, His Holiness, Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, in the process of teaching the Dharma, he often mentioned experiences from the time of Guru Padmasambhava. At that time, during Guru Padmasambhava's era, his name was Dorje Dujom. When he went to certain places many times, he recalled his past life. I remember once in a place called Dawu in Tibetan Aryan area while teaching the 6 Bardos, which is part of the Tibetan Aryan Book of the Dead, as he was teaching, how Guru Padmasambhava taught at that time the entire process. While teaching all this, the master felt very sorrowful. Speaking of all the experiences of past lives, while speaking at that time when Guru Padmasambhava was teaching, what the people around were like, but now circumstances have changed and become like this. While teaching, he began shedding tears. I think someone like him, who has made such great contributions to the Buddhist cause, when there's no necessity, casually telling lies with tears flowing from his eyes, there's no such phenomenon. Once the master went to Tibetan area's first monastery, Sami Monastery. At Sami Monastery, he also recalled when Guru Padmasambhava came to Tibetan area to transmit teachings. The entire process vividly reappeared. While recounting the entire process, he also appeared very sorrowful and manifested tears. This is a fact we saw with our own eyes. So through such experiences, also the master often said, some past lives are as clear as yesterday. For some great masters, it's also like this. Also, next to where I studied at the Buddhist Academy, there was a place where there was a little girl, probably before age 5 or 6. She could recall all events from her past life very clearly. Moreover, things they didn't know at all. After she spoke of them, they all corresponded exactly. These are completely facts. In the face of such facts, there's no way around it. Previously, there was a writer named Dickens. In our textbooks, we've also read some of his articles. He also could completely remember the experience of being murdered by others in his past life. Perhaps some people have seen his story. A writer like him. I feel it's impossible he would deceive others or boast causelessly. Also, there was another writer named Longfellow. I think I quoted him before in Buddhism and Science. He could recall countless of his own lifetimes. Sometimes he was a king, sometimes a woman, sometimes a servant, sometimes other things. All these experiences he could recall very clearly. So I think many people present shouldn't casually disregard or without any reason deny the existence of past and future lives, including Su Dongpo. His past life was a monk named Master Ji, also Emperor Shunji. From his songs, we know what his past life was like. When you look at the story of Master Yulin, although it has some fictional plot elements, actually within it, there's indeed very accurate history. So I think people present, if you have doubts about whether past and future lives truly exist, it's best to read some very meaningful books. Previously, Khenpo Lodro specifically wrote a book, Past and Present Lives. After reading it, I felt it was very good, because he analyzed it from both scientific and Buddhist perspectives. After analyzing, it was very persuasive. Therefore, I spent some time, about 1 or 2 months, translating it. After translating it, I also taught it once to people at the academy. After finishing teaching, I said before many intellectuals, look, do you now have the ability to refute it? If you have the ability to refute, you can stand up and speak. We don't need to mutually respect each other. When respect is due, we can respect, but before facts we convince through reason, not because this is what the Buddha said, so we must respect it, or this is what Christ said, so we must respect it, or this is what the Guru said. We don't have such an attitude. As long as it can withstand testing, withstand observation, this is truth. The Buddha also consistently upheld this viewpoint. During our debates, in many people's minds, they truly developed certainty about the existence of past and future lives. I myself feel this way. So everyone present, if regarding past and present lives you truly have some doubts or feel it's impossible, you best systematically study this treatise. Afterwards, reflect on yourself. See if you still have other doubts, including the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. Originally, in 1993, I went to France and also communicated with Sogyal Rinpoche. At that time, his book hadn't yet been translated into Chinese. He was preparing to translate it at that time. Originally, he wrote it in English. Because Sogyal Rinpoche's English level is very good, he wrote it in English. At first, he asked me to translate the Tibetan area and Book of Living and Dying. I said, on one hand, my level isn't sufficient. On the other hand, my time is especially tight. I'm afraid there's no way. It's better if you find a relatively famous person to translate. Later, he found Professor Jung from Taiwan to translate. At that time, there was also a Khenpo from Sikkim who was translating it into Tibetan. But this Tibetan version, up to now, I still haven't seen it. I don't know what happened. At that time, I saw that Khenpo had translated halfway, from 1993 to now. It's already been 18 years. Perhaps he still hasn't finished translating. I have an American acquaintance. When I met him 8 years ago, I asked about his situation. He said, I'm currently writing 2 books. The other day, I met him again. I asked, how are you? I'm currently writing 2 books. I said, 8 years ago you were writing 2 books. You're still writing these 2 books now. So sometimes people's work may progress relatively slowly. At that time, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying was being translated into Tibetan. At that time, the English edition's effect was very good when we went there. Moreover, Sogyal Rinpoche himself. That very day, it was just translated into German, and he had printed several copies, because His Holiness had just arrived there, and he himself also likes observing auspicious signs. He said, I feel today the auspicious connection is very good. His Holiness has also come to my center, and my Tibetan Aryan Book of Living and Dying has an English edition. Today, it was just translated into German. I'll offer a copy. He gave me one, gave His Holiness one, but I don't understand German. Okay. I just placed it on my head, placed it beside. What did he himself say at that time? He felt that now, although many Westerners believe cause and effect exist, truly regarding the principle of future life's existence and facing death, their knowledge is still very poor. After creating this book, he hopes it can further and more highly elevate their view of life and death. Later on, as everyone knows, in the West, there's also been new understanding regarding the issue of life and death. So I think many people present, whether students or teachers, must absolutely not neglect such a major issue as life and death. Because I often think this way, if future life truly doesn't exist, then we can be lazy like this, or in this life just muddle through. Once it's over, it doesn't matter. But if future life truly exists, not accumulating merit is truly too foolish. Just like a person, if his life after tomorrow doesn't exist, of course today you can sleep in late, do whatever, it's all fine. But if life after tomorrow truly exists, then not having a certain plan for your future, work and life would be foolish. So regarding this issue as intellectuals, is it necessary to frequently contemplate? Then we need to discuss such existence of past and future lives is not what Buddhism advocates. Saying something originally non-existent exists. Actually, it's not like this. Sometimes looking at history in places where Buddhism doesn't exist, people who can recall past and future lives or trust that past and future lives exist, such history and culture have always existed. Including China, for example, before Buddhism entered China, probably during the Spring and Autumn and Warring States period. At that time, reliable history of past and future lives should exist. For example, in Zuozhuan, it explains the story of Prince Qi of Qi transforming into a pig and being chased. It's also very clear. Also in Han Shu, it's mentioned that Zhao King Ruyi was originally killed by Empress Lu when he was 15 years old. After being killed, finally he became a black dog and then pounced toward her. This story. Also in Jin Shu, there are also, for example, the mother of Song Shizong transforming into an aquatic animal, etc. Such stories should exist. So we can't think that once past and future lives are mentioned, is it you Buddhists engaging in superstition? Some people, once they speak such language, truly it's quite lacking in level. So we should stand on a fair objective position to analyze truth. This is also extremely advocated in Buddhism. Generally, Buddhism's view of life and death, of course, it's very profound. I previously saw a Dr. Newman in one of his articles, he said humans have a kind of non-material mind consciousness power that can influence material changes. This statement later attracted attention from many scientists and religious circles. Through his analysis and observation, what conclusion was reached? Originally, we all thought matter is primary, believed matter can create everything, but later, what Buddhism says, all phenomena are created by mind, the three realms are created by consciousness, corresponds very much with such theory. Apart from humans' physical body, continuously extending life after life, there's a kind of subtle consciousness. This subtle consciousness is actually a kind of power. This power, of course, as scientists, I'm afraid they can no longer describe it, because the scientific world actually, when observing or analyzing the realm of mind, it's a complete blank. Why? Because their entire thought strategic goal isn't consciousness. Most is matter. Matter is also explored and observed using some instruments. So regarding the material world, scientists should have made enormous contributions to humanity. But regarding the mind, I think many scholars actually haven't entered the religious realm. If observing according to Buddhism, for example, what we discuss, Yogacara philosophy, or Abhidharma Kosha, Abhidharma, or in Buddhist sutras, the spirit of Avatamsaka Sutra, Lotus Sutra. When observing in this way, it's very easy to understand sentient beings' mental states, including afflictions, wisdom, mental states in all aspects. When I previously studied psychology in school, many problems always troubled me. I often either asked questions or debated with teachers. Many psychology teachers also were dissatisfied with me. At that time, some teachers thought I was deliberately making things difficult for them because some of my confusion really couldn't be resolved. I heard now some of my psychology teachers still have quite significant opinions about me, but later I truly encountered Buddhist Mahayana treatises regarding exploration of mind, including Dzogchen teachings and some other doctrines. At that time, I suddenly became enlightened. In a very short time, I obtained the truth I was seeking. Oh, so that's how it is. Actually, many theories, no matter how they're explained, are like blind people touching an elephant, constantly unable to find the true direction. I remember originally there was a physicist who probably in 1973 won the Nobel Prize, named Dr. Bryan. He himself meditates every day. In the process of meditation, he finally discovered consciousness and the power of consciousness. Through the power of consciousness, later when he made various discoveries in physics, he felt his meditation played an immeasurable role in this field. I very much believe that through meditation, he truly gained some recognition of the mystery of his own mind and the true nature of his mind. At such a time, once one's mind gains mastery, whether in external circumstances toward your friends or in your academic exploration, etc., in all aspects, there should be a feeling of skillful application. When you haven't recognized or haven't grasped the most crucial fundamental issue, no matter how eloquently you speak externally, actually you still can't grasp the most fundamental key issue. So I think many people, including university students who now meditate, especially need to observe your mind using some pith instructions from Buddhism, Buddhist teachings to sometimes observe one's own afflictions. When you observe through Buddhist principles truly this harvest, we won't speak of future lives. In this life, when facing life, facing work, when facing various pressures, there should be very great different changes. Many intellectuals, through studying the Dharma, after studying the Dharma, originally their own mental state was very bad. Some people, on emotional issues, work issues, family issues, were preparing to commit suicide, but later, after studying the Dharma, indeed, many people have been liberated from it. Including this time when I came out, I met 4 people. They all said, before encountering the Dharma, I was preparing to commit suicide. I felt it was strange. Many people were all preparing to commit suicide, but later there was one person whose child was studying in Australia. Suddenly there was a car accident. The child became a vegetative state. She alone took care of both of the mother and son's life was very painful. Later she prepared to commit suicide. At this time she encountered the Dharma. Now, although the child is still in such a state, The mother is still very happy, feeling this is a karmic connection. She can completely understand this truth. One person was because of marriage reasons. One person because of work and other complex issues couldn't figure things out. Another person had some other secret reasons than themselves. The secret can't be told, in any case, truly in this world, as stated in the 400 verses on the middle way. In this great ocean of suffering, ultimately without shores, foolish beings sink within. How can they not feel fear when we're sinking in such a great ocean of suffering? Why, as ordinary people, aren't we afraid? People who don't acknowledge past and future lives, they feel very wonderful, very happy. But when samsara's various illusions manifest on you, scene by scene, I'm afraid you may not feel such happiness. Also in Buddhist sutras, it's explained, as the Buddha taught in the sutra on the samadhi of contemplating the Buddha. Beings of the three realms cycle through the 6 destinies like a spinning wheel of fire. From these scriptural teachings, we can see sentient beings sinking in such samsara. Actually, truly, there's no happiness whatsoever. Our minds very possibly, this life become human, next life become an animal, etc., continuously transmigrating like this. Such transmigration truly also exists. Once I saw in Madhyama Agama a case about duty. When I saw it, I developed extreme renunciation toward samsara. On the surface, it looks like a simple case, but I think sentient beings' actions are truly like this. At that time, when the Buddha went for alms, at one house, the master had already gone out. When he entered that house, there was a white dog. This white dog was sleeping on a bed made of various jewels. Its treatment was very high. In a bowl made of gold, they provided it food. That little dog came down and began barking wildly toward the Buddha. When barking wildly, the Buddha, after seeing its situation, generated great compassion and said, "Why do you treat me like this? Actually, you don't know you were originally the master who possessed certain wealth. Today you've become such a dog, you're not even ashamed, still barking." When the Buddha's words just finished, after hearing these words, this white dog became depressed, continuously not eating, not sleeping, just curled up there. At this time the Buddha returned to the monastery. Then its master returned. After its master returned, he was very unhappy. He said, "Why has my lovely dog become like this today?" Later family members said, "Today the Buddha came. After he spoke some words, it became like this." Later this patron went toward the Buddha, wanting to tell the Buddha, "Why did you make my dog like this today, especially unlovable, worried and distressed?" The Buddha said, "Don't speak like this. Actually, this dog is your father's rebirth. Your father at that time, his affliction of arrogance was extremely strong, and also toward his own family he was so attached. For this reason, this life he became a dog." At that time, this patron truly didn't believe. He said, "If you don't believe, actually it still has many secrets. You go back and ask it, in our house, is there still any gold, silver, treasure? If there's gold, silver, treasure, let it point out where, dig it up." This patron felt this was truly a very good method. After returning, he asked this dog, "Are you my father's rebirth?" It nodded yes. He asked, "Then in our house, is there still much gold, silver, treasure hidden somewhere?" This little dog went to that place and began digging with its paw. Finally, they dug up very, very much real treasure. At this time, the patron, 100% already believed. He developed great renunciation towards samsara. At that time, he asked the Buddha, and the Buddha also taught him some things. For example, killing in past lives, in this life, having short life, liberating life in past lives, in this life, having long life. Giving in past lives, in this life, being able to obtain wealth, being miserly in past lives, in this life, becoming poor. If creating virtuous karma in past lives, in this life, the virtuous mind increasingly grows. If creating evil karma in past lives, in this life, evil discriminating thoughts increasingly multiply. Some lay practitioners often say, "My evil discriminating thoughts are too many. My evil mind is too heavy." This definitely has certain connection with your past lives. If in this life, you create relatively much virtuous karma, your future life definitely, virtuous actions can be done very conveniently, naturally can be accomplished. At that time, after the Buddha taught these teachings, This patron also planted virtuous roots and later attained liberation. So this case, for people who generally don't believe in Buddhism, perhaps this is a mythical story. Actually, truly it isn't. These all, we can't judge them as myths. If judging as myths, truly you may pay a price. Americans also at first felt many things were myths. But later, someone wrote Conversations with Heaven. I don't know if you've seen it. Actually, in Conversations with Heaven, there are especially many cases. These cases all are, some have fallen in hell, some are in other worlds. This person, through different kinds of meditative power, the deceased and the living began communicating. At first, many people didn't believe. Later, he made them believe through various methods. Finally, including the most secret matters between family members, he revealed them. Finally, they all had to believe. This book, speaking of the West, was still very sensational. We should read more such books. Also, I heard in 1930s Shanghai, there was a Frenchman who also, through soul-returning forms, dialogued with the living, some true cases. Including in Tibetan area, there are very many soul-return mediums. These soul-return mediums go to the Bardo realm, then tell the living the words of the deceased in the Bardo realm. Within 7 days they die, then revive. Of course, such examples truly also exist. In this process, possibly there are some individual cases that are fake. This is very hard to rule out. Some don't have such states. There are also some fakes, but truly there are very, very many real ones. Such examples are quite numerous. Therefore, I think many, especially some students in universities, at first, you yourself are full of confidence about life. It seems after university graduation, you'll immediately enter heaven, such a feeling. But I hope you should still mentally prepare. Actually, this society isn't so beautiful, not as you imagine. When you truly leave campus and come to this world, you may especially recall your original student days, leisure, freedom, or simple life. When you truly face life's ups and downs, oh, the truth is that if in one's own heart, truly without patience, then there's no way. Truly the sky is about to collapse, the earth is about to split. It seems in your state it's about to become the entire phenomenon of the movie 2012 Ha. Such a feeling. So I feel now, whether university students or intellectuals, actually having a faith, if having a faith, at least one's thought has a support. Otherwise, when people reach old age, I see many intellectuals, including people who previously had certain fame. In the end, it seems they're all without support, extremely lonely, very desolate, miserable. Spending one's old age in such a state is also very pitiful. So I think each person should have a faith in thought to face life. Facing life, one can't only care about the present moment, be short-sighted. One must stand high, see far, that is to say, our religions. Especially, I believe, using Buddhist wisdom to view our life, view our material world, view our entire ethical morality. At such times, oneself seems under the Buddha's wisdom, all fields of knowledge appear especially insignificant. I've often seen many books that claim to be incredibly famous. Then I read it after reading, oh, actually, originally the Buddha truly, as said in certain sutras, many famous books now, at first, although I'm a monastic. When I hear this book is especially famous, I have confidence. I must read it once. After reading, finally, I'm still somewhat disappointed. It turns out that originally such principles would surely be described in one of the Buddhist sutras. This isn't me denying facts. Generally speaking, in Buddhism, one must acknowledge truth. Whether in Buddhist views or other religions or non-religion, truth is something no one can overturn. But in the process of observing with truth as standard, I truly increasingly believe without doubt in the Buddha's wisdom. So wise ones present should also analyze, observe through your own wisdom. I think today, basically, the principles communicated with everyone are these contents. Finally, I also hope each person should understand the most important issue in one's life, the existence of past and future lives, and accumulate merit and provisions for obtaining happiness life after life. Finally proceed toward the path of attainment. Also, there's one matter, I think today is the 14th. Everyone knows recently in Japan there appeared what can be said is very rare natural and man-made disasters, magnitude 9 earthquake, tsunami, also volcanic eruption, nuclear leakage, etc. After watching television images, in my heart, I still feel very sorrowful. Although you Nanjing people have some resentment toward Japan for historical reasons, most of us are studying Mahayana Buddhism. Studying Mahayana Buddhism from this perspective, no matter what kind of suffering, when oneself experiences it, if oneself were on the scene, rolled in the waves, at this time, this fear, this suffering, including some deceased, before death creating various evil karmas, now departed, becoming bardo beings. Many such principles, the more one reflects, they're very pitiful. So I hope everyone together recites Avalokiteshvara's mantra. Let's together recite 100 times Avalokiteshvara's mantra to dedicate to all victims, the deceased, and those currently experiencing suffering. Everyone together recite. Well, thank you everyone.